Last Friday, I came home early to surprise my family with their favorite pastries. Instead, I found them toasting to having a stupid relative with money, and that stupid relative was me. Standing in my own hallway, clutching a bag of chocolate croissants while listening to the people I'd sacrificed everything for plan their next financial scam against me, I realized something that hit me like a freight train. I wasn't the family helper. I was the family fool. My name is Claire, and this is how I went from being my family's personal ATM to teaching them the most expensive lesson of their lives. 3 years earlier, I thought I had my life figured out. At 35, I was recently divorced from James, not because we hated each other, but because we'd simply drifted apart like old friends who'd run out of things to say. Our divorce was clean, civil, almost boring in its politeness. No screaming matches, no custody battles over kids we never had, just paperwork and the quiet dissolution of a life we built together. The only real asset we had to split was our country house about an hour outside the city. Nothing fancy, but it sat on 2 acres of land and had this peaceful quality that made you forget about deadlines and traffic jams. James didn't want it, said he preferred city life anyway, so it became mine in the settlement. Initially, I planned to sell it immediately. What did a single woman need with a big house in the middle of nowhere? I had my eye on this gorgeous modern apartment downtown, close to my job at the trading company where I worked as a senior account manager. The math was simple: sell the house, buy the apartment outright, no mortgage payments. Clean and practical. But then my family got involved. My parents, Carol and Oliver, are both in their early 60s. Dad's a retired construction worker with calloused hands and strong opinions about everything. Mom was a teacher before retirement, which means she has this way of making you feel guilty without actually saying you should feel guilty. They'd always had opinions about my life choices, but usually kept them to suggestions rather than demands. My sister Emma is 5 years younger than me and works at some trendy boutique downtown. She's always been the social butterfly, the one who remembers everyone's birthday, organizes family gatherings, and somehow makes friends with strangers in grocery store lines. She'd been dating this guy Ryan for about 2 years. He seemed nice enough, worked in IT or something technical that I never quite understood. When I mentioned selling the house at Sunday dinner, it was like I'd announced I was joining a cult. "Claire, you can't sell that beautiful house," Mom said, her fork hovering halfway to her mouth like I'd personally offended her. "Think of all the memories we could make there." Emma jumped in immediately. "Yeah, sis. It could be like our family retreat spot. We could have barbecues and holiday parties there. Christmas mornings with snow on the ground, summer evenings with fireflies." I tried explaining my reasoning. The house would just sit empty most of the time. I didn't need all that space. The apartment would be more practical, more convenient. But then Mom pulled out the big guns. She reached across the table, grabbed my hand with both of hers, and gave me those puppy dog eyes that had been working on me since I was 5 years old. "Please, Claire," she said, her voice getting soft and pleading. "Keep the house. For the family. For me." When your mother looks at you like that and says "for me," resistance becomes almost impossible. I've always had this soft spot for my family, especially my parents. They worked hard their whole lives, never asked for much, and here they were asking me to keep something that would bring them joy. How could I say no? So I didn't. Instead of selling the house and buying that apartment outright, I took out a mortgage on a smaller place in the city. It wasn't quite the modern dream apartment I'd wanted, but it was nice enough. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen, close to work and shopping. The monthly payments weren't too bad thanks to my decent salary and the substantial down payment I'd saved up. The first thing I did after keeping the house was install a comprehensive security system. I'm a single woman, and the house is pretty isolated. I wanted to feel safe when I was there alone. I had cameras installed around the entire property and got one of those alarm systems that connects directly to a monitoring service. The whole setup cost me about $3,000, but it was worth every penny for the peace of mind. I also gave my mom a spare set of keys. The smile on her face when I handed them over made all the financial sacrifice feel worthwhile. Over the next 3 years, that house became the unofficial family headquarters. My parents would drive out there for weekend getaways, just the 2 of them, like they were young again. Emma would take Ryan there for romantic weekends, cooking elaborate meals in the kitchen and taking long walks on the property. During holidays, the place would fill with voices and laughter, me, my parents, Emma, Ryan, sometimes my mom's sister Brenda and her husband, my dad's brother Brian and his family. I felt genuinely good about my decision. Sure, I was paying a mortgage when I could have owned my apartment outright, but seeing my family happy made it seem worth it. My job was going well, the payments weren't stretching me too thin, and I had this warm feeling of being the person who made family gatherings possible. Emma and Ryan's relationship was getting more serious by the month. Ryan's parents, Sharon and Matthew, even started coming to some of our gatherings. They seemed like decent people, maybe a little more uptight than our family, but pleasant enough. I could see wedding bells in the not-too-distant future. Then came that Tuesday evening phone call that started everything. "Claire, honey," Mom's voice was bright and cheerful. "I wanted to let you know we're planning a big family get-together this Friday at your country house. It's going to be me and your dad, Emma and Ryan, his parents Sharon and Matthew, plus Brenda and Brian's whole family. Will you be able to join us?" I sighed, looking at my calendar. "I wish I could, Mom, but I have this really important management meeting on Friday. I'll probably be stuck at the office until late." "Oh, don't worry about it, dear," Mom said in that understanding voice I'd heard 1,000 times. "Your work is important. We'll have fun without you." She hung up, and I went back to watching some mindless TV show, not thinking much about it. Just another family gathering I'd have to miss for work. It happens sometimes. But Friday morning, everything changed. I was getting dressed for the big meeting, already mentally preparing for what I knew would be a long, stressful day, when my boss called. "Claire, I've got some bad news," he said. Both the director and his deputy came down with the flu overnight. "We're going to have to postpone the management meeting until next week." I actually felt relieved. Those meetings were always intense, and I'd been dreading this one for weeks. "Take the afternoon off if you want," he continued. "There's not much else going on today." After I hung up, I sat there for a moment, thinking. My family was at my country house having a good time, and I suddenly had a free Friday afternoon. Why not surprise them? The idea made me smile. It had been a while since I'd done something spontaneous. I could show up with some treats, join the party, see the looks of surprise and delight on their faces. It would be perfect. I got dressed quickly and drove to this little pastry shop I love downtown. The kind of place where everything costs twice what it should but tastes like heaven. I bought a selection of their best stuff, chocolate croissants, fruit tarts, some fancy cookies with names I couldn't pronounce. The kind of treats that make people happy just looking at them. When I pulled into the driveway of my country house, I could see all the lights were on and there were several cars parked outside. Mom and Dad's old Honda, Emma's little red Toyota, Ryan's black SUV, and a couple other cars I recognized as belonging to various family members. Everyone was definitely there, and from the sound of voices and laughter drifting through the windows, they were having a great time. I grabbed the bag of pastries and quietly got out of my car. I wanted this to be a real surprise, so I decided to sneak in through the front door using my key. The voices were coming from the living room, and I could tell there were quite a few people in there. I slipped my key into the lock as quietly as possible and turned it slowly. The door opened without a sound. I stepped inside, holding my breath and trying not to make any noise on the hardwood floors. I was just about to walk into the room and yell surprise when I heard my mom say something that made my blood freeze in my veins. "I'm telling you, Claire is just so incredibly stupid." The laughter that followed felt like a physical blow. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it in the next room. "She does whatever we tell her to do," Mom continued, her voice filled with amusement, like a little puppet. "It's almost too easy." More laughter. Louder this time. "Remember when we convinced her not to sell this house?" Dad chimed in, and I could hear the grin in his voice. "She was all ready to sell it and buy herself a nice apartment outright. But we gave her some sob story about family memories and boom, she keeps the house and takes out a mortgage instead. Now we get to use this beautiful place whenever we want while she's stuck paying for some cramped apartment. The girl has no backbone whatsoever, my mom said, and the casual cruelty in her voice was like a knife twisting in my chest. I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. These were the people who were supposed to love me, support me, have my back no matter what. And they were talking about me like I was some kind of joke. Then Emma's voice cut through the laughter, and somehow this hurt even worse. Oh, and guys, here's the best part, I regularly call Claire crying about rent money. Every single month. And she always gives me around $800, no questions asked. $800. I thought about all those times Emma had called me, sounding so stressed and worried about money. All those times I'd felt good about being able to help my little sister. All those times I'd transferred money to her account without hesitation, happy to be the big sister who could make her problems go away. The room erupted in laughter again, and I felt physically sick. Then I heard my Aunt Brenda's voice. That reminds me of when I called Claire about 6 months ago. I told her I needed money for emergency dental work. Said it was going to cost me $2,000 and I didn't have it. And she just gave it to you? Someone asked. Without even asking for proof or anything, Brenda laughed. Didn't want to see a dentist bill or anything. Just transferred the money to my account the next day. So what did you actually spend it on? New living room furniture, Brenda said proudly. Got this gorgeous sectional sofa and a coffee table set. Claire basically redecorated my living room for me. The laughter was getting louder, more cruel. I realized I was shaking. Then my Uncle Brian started talking, and I learned that the car trouble he'd needed $1,500 for last year was actually a fishing boat he'd wanted to buy. $1,500. $2,000. $800 a month. All these numbers were adding up in my head, and I was starting to realize just how much money I'd given away over the years. Money I'd worked hard for. Money I'd earned through long hours and stressful meetings and careful budgeting. Money they'd taken from me while laughing about how stupid I was. Then I heard Ryan's father's voice. It's really something to have a family member like Claire. Someone who's got money and just hands it out whenever you ask. Like having your own personal bank that never asks questions. That's exactly what she is, my mom agreed, and her voice was full of satisfaction. A walking ATM machine. The best part is she never even asks for the money back. Just gives it away like she's some kind of charity. Well, we need to keep this gravy train going, Dad said. Can't let her get too smart and start saying no to us. My mom's voice got excited. Actually, that's perfect timing because I've been thinking about our next big ask. Emma and Ryan are probably going to get engaged soon, right Emma? We've been talking about it, Emma said. Ryan's been looking at rings. Perfect, Mom continued. When that happens, we'll convince Claire that she needs to pay for the wedding. I'm thinking we can get at least $10,000 or $15,000 out of her for that. Maybe more if we play it right. $10,000 or $15,000 for a wedding. My sister's wedding that I wouldn't even be involved in planning, just expected to pay for. How are you going to convince her to do that? Someone asked. Easy, Mom replied, and I could practically hear her rubbing her hands together. We'll tell her it's what families do for each other. That she's the successful one, so she should help her little sister have the perfect wedding. We'll make her feel guilty if she even thinks about saying no. The sound of glasses clinking filled the air. Here's to stupid relatives with money, someone said, and everyone laughed and cheered. And here's to Claire, my mom added, the gift that keeps on giving. I stood there in that hallway, clutching that bag of expensive pastries, feeling like my entire world had just collapsed around me. These people, my own family, didn't see me as generous or kind or loving. They saw me as a mark, a fool, a resource to be exploited. All those times I'd felt needed and appreciated, all those moments when I'd felt good about helping them out, all those warm family gatherings where I'd felt so connected to these people, it was all fake. Every bit of it. They didn't love me. They loved my money. I turned around as quietly as I could and walked back toward the front door. I had to get out of there before they realized I was in the house. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the door handle, but somehow I managed it. I made it back to my car without making a sound and put the pastries on the passenger seat. They suddenly seemed pathetic sitting there, these expensive treats I'd bought to surprise people who thought I was an idiot. I started the engine and backed out of the driveway slowly, trying not to let my emotions overwhelm me until I was safely away from the house. But the moment I was out of sight, the tears started flowing. By the time I made it back to my apartment, I was sobbing so hard I could barely see to drive. I collapsed on my couch and cried for hours. Not just sad tears, but angry ones. Hurt ones. Tears of betrayal and humiliation and rage. I spent the entire weekend thinking about what I'd heard and what I was going to do about it. Part of me wanted to call them right away and confront them. To scream at them, tell them exactly what I thought of their little scheme, cut them off completely. But then I realized something. They had just made plans to get me to pay for Emma's wedding. They were so confident in their manipulation, so sure of my stupidity, that they'd laid out their entire strategy right there in my living room. Let's see how that plays out, I thought. I didn't have to wait long. 2 weeks later, my phone rang on a Tuesday evening. It was Mom, and she sounded absolutely thrilled about something. "Claire! Oh honey, I have the most wonderful news," she gushed. "Emma and Ryan got engaged. Can you believe it? Ryan proposed last night with this beautiful ring. Emma is over the moon." "That's so sweet," I said, playing along. I bet she was completely surprised. She was. "And Claire, we want to have an engagement party to celebrate. I was thinking we could have it at your country house in a couple of weeks. Would that be okay?" Here it comes, I thought. Of course, Mom. The house is always available for family events. There was a pause, and I could almost hear her gearing up for the big ask. "Claire, honey, there's just one tiny little problem," she said, and her voice suddenly sounded worried. "What's wrong, Mom?" "Well, we want to make this party really special for Emma and Ryan, with nice catering and decorations and everything. But we're a little short on funds right now." I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. "Oh no, that's too bad. I feel terrible asking, but we need about $5,000 to make this party really nice. For the catering, the decorations, a gorgeous engagement cake. I know it's a lot of money, but Emma only gets engaged once." There it was. The exact same plan I'd heard them discussing 2 weeks earlier. $5,000, I said, making my voice sound concerned. "Wow, that is a lot." "I know, but you make good money at your job, and Emma is your only sister. This is such an important moment for her." I could practically hear her holding her breath, waiting for me to agree like I always did. "Mom, I wish I could help, but I don't have that kind of money available right now," I said. I just had some unexpected expenses come up. Some repairs on my apartment that I had to pay for. My emergency fund is pretty much tapped out. I could tell she was disappointed, but she was trying not to show it. "Oh, well, what if Emma and Ryan and your dad and I paid for everything up front, and then you could pay us back later when you have the money?" Perfect. They were so predictable. "That sounds like it might work," I said. "You guys go ahead and order whatever you want for the party, and I'll pay you back as soon as I can." "Really? Oh, Claire, you're an angel. I'll call the caterers tomorrow and get everything set up." "Sounds great, Mom. I can't wait for the party." After she hung up, I sat there shaking my head. They were so sure they had me figured out, so confident that I'd just hand over $5,000 without question, just like I always had before. Well, they were about to learn something new about me. 2 weeks passed, and on Thursday I called a locksmith and scheduled them to come to my country house on Friday evening. I told them I needed all the locks changed, front door, back door, everything. I made sure to schedule them for late in the evening when no one from my family would be around. On Friday after work, I drove out to the house. Sure enough, they'd already been there decorating for Saturday's party. The place looked beautiful, actually. They'd put up streamers and balloons everywhere, set up elegant tables with white tablecloths, hung string lights that made everything look magical. They'd really gone all out. I almost felt bad about what I was going to do. Almost. The locksmith showed up right on time at 7 p.m. Nice guy named Jericho who didn't ask questions about why someone would want to change all their locks the night before a party. After he left, I walked through the house one more time, looking at all the decorations. Then I started taking everything down. Every streamer, every balloon, every fancy table setting. I stuffed it all into big black garbage bags, trying not to think about how much work they put into making the place look perfect. When I was done, I dragged the bags around to the corner of the house where they'd be visible from the driveway but out of the way. Then I drove home to wait for tomorrow's show to begin. The next morning, Saturday, I sent my mom a text message. "Hey mom, I'm really sorry but I won't be able to make it to Emma's engagement party today. I'm feeling pretty sick with a cold and don't want to get everyone else sick." She texted back about an hour later, "That's fine, Claire. Feel better." That was it. No, oh no, are you okay? Or do you need anything? Or I hope you feel better soon. Just that's fine. She didn't even pretend to care about my health. It was like she was actually relieved I wouldn't be there. I spent the morning relaxing in my apartment, waiting to see what would happen. I ordered a pizza for lunch and made myself a nice cup of coffee. Then I settled in to watch some TV. Around 2 o'clock, my phone started ringing. It was Mom. I looked at it and smiled, then let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, Dad called. I didn't answer that one either. Then Emma called. Nope. Then Mom again. Still not answering. My phone kept buzzing with text messages. I finally looked at them after about 20 minutes of constant notifications. Claire, we're at the house but our keys don't work. Mom. The locks are different. What happened? Dad. Claire, why aren't you answering your phone? We can't get in. Emma. This is crazy. The keys don't fit at all. Mom again. I set my phone aside and let them panic for another 30 minutes while I enjoyed my pizza. It was actually pretty peaceful, knowing that right now they were all standing outside my house, confused and frustrated, probably arguing with each other about what to do. Finally, when I figured they'd suffered enough, I answered when Mom called again. Claire, thank God you answered, she shouted into the phone. We're all here at your house and we can't get in. All the relatives are here, Ryan's parents are here, the caterers just showed up with all the food, and we're standing in the driveway like idiots because the door won't open. That's weird, I said, taking a sip of my coffee. What do you mean, weird? Something's wrong with your locks. Actually, nothing's wrong with them, I replied calmly. I had them changed yesterday. There was dead silence on the other end of the phone for about 10 seconds. You changed the locks? Mom finally stammered. Why would you do that? Well, I heard you call me stupid about a month ago, I said casually. You and everyone else there were having a good laugh about how dumb I am. Another pause. I could hear voices in the background, probably everyone asking what was happening. Claire, honey, I think you misunderstood something, she said, suddenly switching to her sweet voice. We would never say anything like that about you. Really? So you didn't say I was incredibly stupid and that I do whatever you tell me to do like a puppet? More silence. And Emma didn't brag about scamming rent money out of me every month? Even more silence. And Brenda didn't laugh about spending my dental emergency money on furniture instead? Claire, you're not making sense, Mom said, but her voice was getting shaky. I heard the whole conversation, Mom. Every single word. About how I'm a walking ATM machine. About how you were planning to get me to pay for Emma's wedding. About the toast you all made to stupid relatives with money. The line went quiet again. I could hear more voices in the background, probably everyone asking what was happening. Look, even if you heard something like that, Mom said finally, you have to understand we were just joking around. We didn't mean anything by it. I laughed. Joking? Taking thousands of dollars from me while calling me an idiot behind my back is your idea of a joke? Claire, you're being ridiculous. We're family. Family helps each other out. You're right, Mom. Family should help each other out. But what you've been doing isn't helping. It's stealing. I heard Emma's voice in the background yelling something, and then she was on the phone. Claire, You're being a complete brat. Emma screamed. We've already decorated the house. Everyone is here. The food is here. You're going to ruin my engagement party. Actually, Emma, I already took down all your decorations, I said calmly. They're in garbage bags at the corner of the house. You can pick them up and get off my property. You can't do this to me, she wailed. This is my special day. Your special day that you expected me to pay for while laughing about how stupid I am? Yeah, I can definitely do this to you. We're going to break down the door. Emma shrieked. No, you're not, I replied. Because I have security cameras and an alarm system. Remember? If you damage my property, I'll call the police and have you all arrested. Emma started crying and handed the phone back to Mom. Claire, please, Mom said. Can't we work this out? Just let us in and we'll talk about this like adults. There's nothing to work out, Mom. I heard exactly what you all think of me. The talking is over. But we spent $5,000 on this party, she said desperately. I burst out laughing. And whose fault is that? I told you I didn't have the money. You decided to spend it anyway, hoping you could guilt me into paying you back later. That was your choice. Claire, that's not fair. We're your family. You're right. You are my family. And that's what makes this whole thing so much worse. I took a deep breath. Take your decorations and your food and your guests and get off my property. And don't come back. You don't mean that, she said, but she sounded scared now. I absolutely mean it. I'm done being your personal ATM. I'm done being the stupid sister and daughter who pays for everything. I'm done with all of you. I hung up the phone and turned off the ringer. For the next hour, I watched on my security cameras as they all packed up and left. It was actually pretty satisfying to see them loading the catering food back into the delivery truck and shoving the decorations into their cars. Emma was crying the whole time. Ryan looked completely confused. His parents looked mortified. Good. Let them be embarrassed. The next morning, Sunday, there was loud pounding on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole and saw my parents and Emma standing there looking furious. I opened the door. What do you want? We want to talk, Dad said, pushing past me into my apartment. You ruined everything. Emma screamed. My engagement party is ruined and it's all your fault. Actually, it's your fault for thinking I was stupid enough to pay for it after what I heard you say about me. You owe us $5,000. Mom shouted. We spent that money because of you. I laughed so hard I almost cried. You spent that money because you thought you could manipulate me into paying for it. That backfired on you, didn't it? Mom's face went pale. She finally realized that I had set them up on purpose. You did this intentionally, she said slowly. Of course I did. You think I'm stupid, remember? But it turns out I'm a lot smarter than you gave me credit for. Dad stepped forward. Until you apologize to us and pay us back that money, we're not speaking to you anymore. I smiled at him. Perfect. That saves me the trouble of cutting you out of my life myself. I don't want to talk to any of you anymore anyway. You can't be serious, Mom said. Dead serious. I'm done giving you money. I'm done letting you use me. I'm much smarter now, aren't I? I opened my apartment door. Now get out. They left without another word. That was 6 months ago. I never sold the country house. Instead, I signed a contract with a real estate agency and they rent it out as a vacation rental. The income actually helps pay my mortgage and I don't have to deal with my freeloading family anymore. I saw on Facebook that Emma got married last month. It was a small, cheap ceremony at a local church. I wasn't invited, obviously. I didn't send a gift either. My parents and Emma have tried reaching out a few times through mutual friends, but I ignore them. I'm not interested in reconciling. They showed me exactly what they think of me, and I believe them. I'm actually happier now without them in my life. My bank account is healthier, my stress levels are lower, and I've started building relationships with people who actually care about me as a person, not as a source of money. Turns out I'm not as stupid as they thought I was. I'm just done being their fool. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we trust completely. But sometimes, discovering their true nature is exactly what we need to finally start living for ourselves. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others who might need to hear it, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding your strength in the most unexpected moments. The most expensive lesson isn't always paid with money, sometimes it's paid with trust.